These three are the best browsers for anonymity, privacy, and security. Starting off with LibreWolf, the wolves themselves. A free and open source Firefox-based browser, and the main goal for LibreWolf is as said, to increase protection against tracking and fingerprinting techniques, which also include a few security improvements. Data collection, annoyances, all of that are disabled by default when you use LibreWolf browser. Up to date with the latest Firefox stable source for up-to-date security and features along with stability. The best feature I love from LibreWolf, and this is just my personal opinion, but it's their fingerprint protection, because if you can see here, it says enable RFP. So this is enabled by default when you use LibreWolf browser. The RFP is a part of the Tor Uplift project. Now what the Tor Uplift project is basically, so you know how the Tor browser has the best fingerprint protection of all time? Well, that same technique of making all users look the same, that's the same method that the makers of the LibreWolf are trying to implement in their browser. So when you use the LibreWolf browser, you will look like another user, another person that's using the browser. So you are trying to, well, the main goal of the makers of LibreWolf are trying to make all users look the same, and this is a very good way of protecting yourself against the fingerprint method of what the government and officials use to track you down. Because it's very hard to pinpoint who is who if everyone looks the same. So that same method that the Tor browser uses, that's the same thing that the makers of the LibreWolf are trying to implement in the browser. But it's a very good feature. It's the best one I like in the browser. So yeah, moving on to the Mullvad Browser. Now this is another fork of Firefox. It is a free and open source browser that you can download on Linux, Mac OS, Windows. It's not available for Android or an iOS. It's the same thing like LibreWolf. They're not available for mobile devices. And to be honest, that's a good thing. But the reason why is because these mobile devices are actually limited. So the things you can do on, like, when you make an app for or software for a computer, it's kind of limited when you make it for a mobile device. Like the security features and the privacy features on the computer is not always the best to try to implement that into an app that you can use on your mobile devices. Anyways, the one thing I like about Mullvad Browser, I was about to say Mullvad VPN. Everything I said about LibreWolf, the Mullvad Browser does. But the one thing I do like about the Mullvad Browser is just that they teamed up with the official Tor project, the makers behind the Tor network, and yeah, they actually teamed up with the official Tor project to make this browser, and the main goal for this browser is pretty much just privacy-based, anonymity-based, and they actually encourage you to use a VPN when you use this browser, because when you're using this browser, it's actually made for you to be completely anonymous but excluding the Tor. So instead of, it's basically like a Tor browser but without the Tor. So the Tor project and Mullvad teamed up to make this browser basically like a Tor browser but without the Tor. So when you use this browser, you're supposed to have a trustworthy VPN. It can be a decentralized VPN or a centralized VPN that is actually trustworthy. And when you use that in combination with this browser, you're completely anonymous if you have good OPSEC. Now, this is something I totally love. I really love how Mullvad went out of their way to team up with the official Tor project to do this. And this is something that I really love. You can check out their source code just to verify the information that they let out on their website. But yeah, Mullvad VPN is, I don't know why I keep saying Mullvad VPN. Mullvad Browser, the Mullvad Browser. I don't even have Mullvad VPN, just to let you guys know I don't have that. But, yeah, the Mullvad Browser is definitely one of my top browsers I would recommend for privacy, anonymity, and security, because it is literally the best browser I've come across that helps with fingerprint protection. And yeah, this is really good. What I would say about LibreWolf is that the LibreWolf browser they do implement fingerprint protection, but it's not going to be as good as the Mullvad browser, because obviously the Mullvad actually teamed up with the Tor project, the official people that actually came up with this whole idea of making all users look the same. That obviously it can't really compare. But I'm not going to down talk LibreWolf because it has its usage. I would definitely recommend LibreWolf if you're not really using a VPN, but you still want that type of high fingerprint protection on your browser and just other security features and privacy features. Use LibreWolf browser. It is really good for that type of thing. Moving on to the Tor browser. Guys, do I really gotta make this a long explanation? The Tor browser, I'm gonna make this short. The Tor browser is I'm gonna make sure you guys hear this. The Tor browser is the best browser for anonymity, privacy, and security. There is no browser, I repeat, no browser in history that has ever been made that can compete with the Tor browser in anonymity.